Hello, my name is Patrick Smith, and I'm the Regional Resource Recruiter for Somerset, Wicomico, and Worcester County. And we're here to speak about foster care and what's it like to be a foster parent. I'd like to welcome some of our foster parents here. We have sitting next to me Miss Tamasha Blunt, and next to her is Matt Jones and his wife Kelly Jones, and finally on the end we have Mr. Billy McDermott. Billy, could you just tell us a little bit about how long you've been a foster parent and how long you've been licensed, as well as what kind of made you decide to become a foster parent?
Sure. Thanks for the question, Patrick, and thanks for having us here. So I've been licensed for a little under a year now. Both my wife and I went through the Pride class about a year ago. We decided that we wanted to be foster care parents for a couple of different reasons. I don't think there was any one particular reason, but I can tell you that I grew up as a child in a foster care home. My parents were foster care parents in Worcester County, so growing up I had the unique experience of having a lot of different foster care brothers and sisters, which was, in my opinion, a great way to grow up. There were times where I was the youngest child, there were times where I was the oldest, the middle, so I got a great diversity of an experience growing up in a foster care home. I also got to see my parents really give back to the community in ways in which a lot of people don't understand unless they're foster care parents and they do it for a long time. And so I knew that I wanted to emulate some of the things that I saw my parents doing. As a professional, I'm a prosecutor, and so I work a lot with children who are in need of assistance. And personally, I kind of got tired of getting attached to them only for the purposes of trial and then seeing them and never seeing them again. And so I kind of wanted to be able to work not just on the front end as a prosecutor and someone in law enforcement, but I also wanted to be there on the back end and try to make a difference in these kids' lives after court ended. And so understanding both of those things, my wife and I decided that the time was right, we were ready, and so we were really excited to get into foster care. I told you we've been licensed for about a year now, and I think in a year we've already had 8 placements, so we're off to a rapid start and we're loving every minute of it.
Wow, thank you. Matt, how about you and Kelly? How long have you been foster parents, and what caused you, what made you decide to be foster parents?
Sure, thanks for having us, Patrick. So we've been licensed for just about 12 years now here in Wicomico County. Our journey is quite a bit different than the path Billy has taken. We ran into some fertility issues that were somewhat challenging to overcome for several different reasons, but we were really striving to be parents, and we wanted to be parents and raise children, and we searched around a few different means or a few different avenues that we would be able to do that, none of which we necessarily felt led to do. And then someone mentioned being a foster parent, so we looked into that, and again, that was probably about 13 years ago when we first started that process of seeing what the options were. But we realized that was maybe not necessarily what was in our plan for being parents, but it was a way that we would be able to have children in our lives, to be a parent. And a lot of good has come from that. We've had a lot of exposure to many different children along the way, and it's been a great journey. It's been a quick 12 years.
So, Tamasha, could you share how long you've been a licensed foster parent, and a little bit about what brought you to the decision to become a foster parent?
Sure, Patrick. Again, thank you for having me here to represent Somerset County. When I was younger, it might sound crazy, I said I wanted 10 children. I had 2 of my own. Ran into some complications with pregnancies. So I said I wanted to be a foster parent where I could continue to raise children and have multiple kids in my care besides just the 2 that I have. So once I got older, my oldest one is 18, my youngest one is getting to be a teenager, I decided that the time was right. I had more time on my hands now that I was in my career and kind of more settled. So I reached out to I met a lady in the hair place, and I was telling her about it. She was telling me that she is a licensed foster parent and how I could go about signing up for it. So made a call to DSS, took Pride class, and here I am today, almost 8 months to a year later. I've had one placement. I have two. I have a sibling group. I have a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old, and I've had one in respite, and it's been a great journey so far.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So kind of going off of Pride, Kelly, could you share with us a little bit about Pride, your expectations were before you actually showed up for Pride? Did you have an info session? How did you get to that step of actually showing up to Pride the first night, and what was that like?
Sure. So we did have an info session, and it kind of touched on what to expect through the Pride training. And it's been a while ago, so I'm trying to remember all the details. But I know that we did do the 9-week course. We met once a week, and then after that we became licensed, and a lot of the training was sort of things that you can expect from the department, things that the department would expect of us, and how the process would go, what all the things that we would have to do in order to become quote unquote licensed to be foster parents.
Yeah. So Billy, could you tell us a little bit about your experience with Pride? How, when you showed up the first couple weeks, what that was like? Because that's one thing that we do, make sure that we let the parents know that we appreciate them actually showing up the next week, because sometimes it can be challenging and not ready to hear some of the things and some of the stories that we have to present.
Sure. It's a lot to take in at first, right? But you also have to remember it's designed to be that way. It's not supposed to be easy. I think the people who attend the Pride classes go in expecting that this may be a difficult journey for a lot of different reasons. For all the different reasons that we've told you that we wanted to be foster care parents, there's an expectation, I think, from the state of Maryland that we're ready to be foster care parents. And we may not know what that means when we walk in through the doors. It's probably a good opportunity for me to give a class shout out to our teacher, Trina, who is one of our social workers, and she's wonderful. She really made that class worthwhile, coming back every single time. There were a lot of things that we expected to learn. There were a lot of things that we didn't expect to learn. I think one of the best parts about Pride are the hands-on training. So the example, the scenario-driven exercises that you do, as opposed to just reading the books or going through the videos that they play. A lot of our class was kind of social interaction, social experiment. Let me give you a scenario. How would you react to that? And then being in a class with people like Matt, who might feel differently about something than I do, and then having that conversation that followed really helped prepare you as best one can be prepared when becoming a foster care parent for all of the different things that might pop up. We really enjoyed our Pride class.
Yeah. So that's the next question I'd like to ask you, Matt. When the Pride training, after you had completed that, I know it's been a little bit ago, but did you feel confident in that you were well prepared to come out and receive that first phone call?
I'm pausing because I'm trying to reflect back to, I want to say yes, but I think we were prepared and we were equipped because we had been given the tools and the training to go and do what we set out to do. However, just, emotion and preparation of your heart is really what, at the end of the day, that's what prepares you to answer that call. The training is great because it will, it gives you more background, the steps leading up to it, and but part of that is that emotional awareness of what this truly is. It's not a part-time job. It's not, hey, just help out for a day or two. It really, makes you dig down deep and look within yourself to be sure for a reality check that this truly is what I want to do, because our emotions aren't the only ones that play here. It's those of the children too. So that's the benefit of the training, is you get to hear that backstory behind children and how to prepare for what they come with and the stories that they're going to bring with them.
Yeah. So, Tamasha, so it's not been that long ago that you received that first phone call. So can you walk us through that? What was it like? How was? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can almost remember it because, again, mine is within the last 4 months. But shout out to Melissa in Somerset. Pride really helped me because she was transparent and she was honest. So we didn't always hear good things, good stories in Pride. You heard some challenging stories. So even with those challenging stories, from the honesty of it, it's like you can prepare yourself for the good, and it gave you some time to prepare yourself for the challenging children that we could get into care. So of course, you're a little nervous. Emotions are mixed because you're excited, but then your excitement, you're getting a kid that's been taken out of their comfort zone and put into your home. So the kid's not going to be too excited. So it's like a lot of emotions, like you were saying a few minutes ago. But it's for the good, because it's like, now all that I've learned, here's my time to put it into action. Here's my time to remember all of those things that I was taught in Pride, the phone calls, the good, the bad, all of the things that we learned. It's time to put it into action.
Yeah. Kelly, how about a lot of times individuals don't realize that 100% of the kids that come in to foster care have experienced some form of trauma, some worse than others. But could you speak upon the trauma that some of our kids have experienced, and how you and Matt have dealt with that?
Absolutely. I know we've had about, I want to say 15 placements over our kind of journey through foster care, and we've adopted 4 children through foster care, so our experiences have been a little different.
Awesome.
Thank you. But our experiences have varied. We have actually, 2 of our children we have taken home from the hospital. So they were brand new. They'd been in there for, I don't know, between 6 to 8 days maybe before we brought them home. So they did experience some trauma because they essentially were still separated. And our other 2 children were, they were placed with us when they were 1 and 2. So their level of trauma was a little bit different because they, were old enough to kind of know people and understand things to a different level, where, when you're an infant, you think, oh, they don't really know anybody, their trauma is going to be less. And I know that, they still do suffer trauma because their brains are developing even as little infants, and if they don't have somebody there holding them and cuddling them all the time as a traditional infant would, that can affect them even in the future. So I think that it's tough because every situation is completely different, and trying to understand what some of these kids have experienced, and that baggage that they're bringing, and now they're coming into a brand new setting with people they don't know at all. Pride definitely helps set you up for some of that, but some of it is just the experience and dealing with it 1 minute at a time. Because sometimes you can be as prepared as you feel like you can be, but you're still not, because you really can't fully understand what those kids have been through.
Yeah.
How old are your kids?
They are currently 11, 2 of them are 9, and 1 is 8.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We're busy.
And Patrick, I would also add that part of the Pride training helps with the trauma to just go over the different levels of trauma and different types, because it's, there's more than just a physical or an emotional trauma. It comes in various different ways, and there's a lot of psychological, impacts that can come with these children. So that's great about the training, is that it helps as foster parents give you a foundation, to build from, to while you don't have a crystal ball that would say what the child might have that comes into care in a year or 2, but at least you can help give some background on the different types of conditions that they may have, and not only that, provide resources and be a lifeline and a help for the foster parents to get them through that time.
Yeah. Billy, as part of the professional team, as a foster parent, you all are considered a primary member of the professional team that makes up the child, the biological parents, and the social worker, caseworker. How can you speak upon how your role as a member of that team, how has that been for you? Have you felt like a professional member? Have you been treated like that?
Absolutely. I mean, to answer the question straightforward, the answer is yes. The Department of Social Services does a terrific job treating us like professionals and as if we're part of the team. If you're asking, some of the challenges that may be associated with something like that, certainly each particular situation is going to be unique. One of the things, listening to you guys talk about it, right now we have a placement that's with us, and it's an effort. There's a biological mother who has now come back into the picture, and that was after the Department of Social Services asked if we would be an adoptive resource, which it's a very big moment for people when they come to you and they say, because we had other placements leading up to that, but they say, will you be adoptive parents for this young child? She's 3 years old. And you're kind of forced in a split second to say yes or no, and it's a lifelong commitment. Think about that. Think about how crazy that is just for a moment. They come to you, they say, will you be this person's parent for the rest of their life? And so when you say yes, it's a heavy responsibility. And so then you start taking on a certain role in that professional development that you talked about. And in our particular situation, birth mother who wasn't in the picture when DSS came to us has now come back into the picture. And so that was a struggle for us, because we said, well, yeah, we're ready. We're going to be your parents forever. And now there's a birth mother coming into the picture. And so dealing with that has been challenging, but Pride set us up for it. So we did, we took some of the suggestions from Pride. We've been doing what they call life books. So we put together pictures of the child. We write letters to the mother and let her know, listen, this is how she's doing. This is what she did last Saturday. Here's a picture of it, just to try to keep her in the loop, because ultimately our goal is the same. No matter what the situation, that's ultimately going to be reunification. Sometimes that's a struggle for us, because we may not personally think that whatever that situation is in the best interest of the child, but that's where the team effort comes in. The different viewpoints, different roles, the Department of Social Services, the birth parents, the foster care parents, and we all kind of have to get together at the table and figure out what's in the child's best interest. Pride does a great job of doing that, but that's only because you guys were such good teachers.
So just to touch on, Billy brought up life books, and Kelly, you and Matt have both adopted. So could you speak upon the life book a little more?
Sure. We were first introduced many years ago by one of our caseworkers that created the life book to have with the child, which essentially is for lack of a better term, a scrapbook for that child, which starts at day one and carries them through their life. And in our particular case, our children, as Kelly mentioned, 2 of them came home with us from the hospital, so they didn't, they'll never have that background or remember being a part of someone else's family. But this is great because it brings together pictures and stories of the biological family that we're able to share with them. We feel comfortable in doing that now at their ages, and they often want to look at them. And I'll let you add, because it's a special moment. I know Kelly really enjoys pulling those out and going through them with the kids.
Yeah, they're all getting to an age now where they start to ask questions. We've always been open with our kids from day one that they're adopted. They know that without a doubt. We've shared, stories with them as appropriate, and biological family members as appropriate with them. And just recently, I think within the last 6 months, we were all having a conversation in the car, as we do when we come home from school, and they start asking about, whose belly did I grow in? Where did I come from? Those sort of questions. And so we actually got to sit down one night with all 4 of them and pulled out all 4 of their life books. They all got to see, pictures of biological family maybe that they had seen before or they hadn't seen before. We kind of went through their family tree and talked about some of their siblings, that whether they know them currently or they don't know them currently, they still know that they're out there, and they know kind of that piece of where they came from. We try to share, again, as I say, appropriate information, so we can't always share everything, but I think those books are just a huge piece of the puzzle that they need to help fill that void, because no matter what we say or do, they're always going to have that void there of, who's my biological family, where did I initially come from when I entered this world. So having that is just a huge tool, and I think it's really good for the kids, even those kids that come and go, to have those experiences, because that is part of their life that they've experienced, and to have pictures to go along with that to build their story it is just so huge for these kids.
Yeah. Wow. Tamasha, you have a little bit different experience as a single parent, a single foster parent. that's a little bit different from what Matt and Kelly and Billy and his wife have to go through. Could you share some of the challenges that you are experience as a single foster parent, and proving that it can be done, and that you don't have to have a partner there. You can be a very successful and very loving and caring foster parent and be single.
Well, the biggest thing I always say to people is make sure that whoever you use for your alternate care providers aren't just names, but making sure it's somebody that has almost the same passion that you have, that they're the same vision and the same love that you have and that you want to give, because that's what's been the biggest help for me. My mom knows my heart. She knows how I enjoy keeping children. So when I told her about it in the beginning, she was excited. She's more of it's hard to let go of the kids if they have to move almost than I am, because she didn't take pride, so she didn't go through all of that with the back and forth. So I'm like, Mom, but just making sure that you have those persons that say, when you put them down for the alternate care providers, who are helped, because without them, I wouldn't be able to do it. So making sure that, you have a team of supporters. Again, with DSS on the professional line, they're always, open for respite providers. So to make sure that I'm not burnt out, or that I'm not, I have my time. They're awesome with making sure that, just making sure that I'm communicating with them. They get respite providers for the kids in care, just so I can have some, time or space. Just as if I had my biological kids who goes with their fathers, it's the same. So the DSS as a whole helps make it a whole lot easier to being a single parent doing foster care.
Mm-hmm. So when you speak of respite and alternative providers, that alternative providers are another individual that you've chosen to kind of step in, and they have to go through some of the same background checks as you did. They didn't have to go through PRIDE, but our respite providers, they are actually licensed providers, and they have gone through PRIDE background checks and so forth. And that's another thing that that some of the general public doesn't understand, that you can be a foster parent and just provide respite. We need families that can provide a loving and caring and a safe home, whether it's for a couple hours a week, a weekend, overnight, just as much as we need parents that can provide long-term foster care. Matt, can you share an experience that maybe you and Kelly have had with respite, either providing respite and building that relationship? A respite is a little different than a longer term.
It is, and respite it's temporary, and you know that going in, that it could be a day, as you mentioned, even a few hours a week, or a day or a weekend, and we have done that before, and it's still fulfilling to be able to have the resources and a place for someone to be, but just because it's temporary doesn't in and of itself means that it's easy. Doesn't mean that it's hard either, but it's still, you still go back to the training and a lot of the things that you've been carrying around for a few years to handle objections and situations that the children may have, but it's also enjoyable for the children that are in the home as well, because it gives them somebody new to play with or hang out with and throw the ball with, and we've been able to maintain a relationship. It's not very frequent, but we'll see one of the kids that we've had with the respite placement before, and we get to hang out for a few minutes and catch up and see them at the ball field, and it's fun because you build relationships with these people that it's as Billy was saying, these decisions that you have to make in an instant last a lifetime, and even if it's not an adoptive decision, something as short as respite, it truly can develop and last for many years to come.
Yeah.
And if I can piggyback, my placement now started off as a respite.
Okay.
So they started off as a 30-day respite, and now I have them on they're in foster care on a 3-month time frame. So that can always change. It can start off one way, and depending on the situation, that always change.
Yeah. I know that we have parents that going in, they had stated that they only wanted children between the ages of birth, 2 years old. And you all laugh, that's kind of the common thing. Everybody wants an infant, right? But we have parents that actually, like yourself, Tamasha, they kind of stepped outside of their comfort zone and did respite for a teenager and have built relationships. And we have parents that are actually going into the direction of adopting a child that they, when they first started out, they never would have gone for that at all. But they stepped outside of their comfort zone and did respite, and they kind of opened the door for it. So it's neat to hear you say that. Billy, you kind of touched on it a little bit, and Matt did as well. Some of the emotions and feelings that you have, and we ask you all to open up your home and to love these kids, and to give your heart and your soul and everything to these kids, with the end result hoping to be reunification. So we ask you to do this and give all this love, and then just kind of hand it back over. How is that? I mean, I know that I've always been told that if you're hurting as a foster parent, then you're doing it right.
I think that's probably the best way to put it. Listen, that is both the most rewarding and the most challenging part about this. It's heart-wrenching. I mean, it is absolutely heart-wrenching because, like you said, you open up your heart, and if you're doing it right, you're loving them as if they're your own children. And that's a really hard concept to reconcile in your head when you have to start thinking about them going and being with someone else. Because I think your natural inclination is to think that you are what's best for them. Because that we wouldn't be doing this unless we thought that.
Right.
But you kind of have to trust the system. You have to trust the process. I mentioned it before. I'm a prosecutor, and so I trust processes. I trust that there's a system in place and that the laws are designed to work themselves out in the end. And in honesty, that doesn't always happen, right? And so in the back of your head, you're always worried that maybe this is the circumstance that this isn't going to work out right. For both Patty and I, that's been the hardest part. We fall head over heels for each and every one of the placements that have been in our home. And we dread the day that we're told that they're going somewhere else, but ultimately we know that there's a greater good at stake than maybe just fulfilling the needs in our hearts. We were at the foster care appreciation dinner the other night, and Trina had said a statement that or had an expression that I hadn't heard before. She thanked everybody in the room for being the people who tie the shoes but don't fill them. And I thought that was just such a really good way to put it. We're there to tie their shoes, not always to fill the shoes of parents, which is a really hard concept for a lot of people to come to terms with. But I think, like you said, if you're doing it right, it should hurt, and the kids will leave knowing just how loved they were.
Yeah. Matt, could you and Kelly speak about the experiences that you have had as being foster parents for children that are of different cultural or racial background, and how that's been?
So it started off, in the beginning, we wondered too what that was going to be like, right? That was, a moment in time where we actually pushed pause in our decision-making process as to whether we were going to proceed with a placement, and then it clicked that who cares, right? It doesn't really matter because a child is a child.
Yeah.
So that decision that we made has probably been the best decision that we've made in our lives, because even though we've had to overcome some cultural challenges, and our children are all of a different ethnic background, it's opened us up to a world in which we never saw before. And I don't fault us for that, but you just live life like you live life, and that's how it is. And it's moments like this, and it's times like these where you're involved in someone else's life that you really get to see there's more world around us than what just happens in our sphere of our family and our work and our culture.
Yeah.
But it's been an interesting process, and we've had to learn to, how people just, even the basic stuff of how to physically care for someone with skin and shampoo and hair and traditions and culture, there's a lot to it. You know, it's more than just the color of skin. It's just how you even take care of somebody. But it's been challenging. Kelly can, you know, expand on that. But we've had some instances where we've been challenged by people in public before of who the children actually are.
Yeah, my favorite story to tell is we had all 4 of our kids, and they were all very little at the time, and we were going through the Civic Center, like a home show. And so Matt was leading the pack, and all 4 of them were following behind him, and then I was at the end. And this sweet lady stopped me, and she said, "Did you bring your Sunday school class out here with you today?"
Yes.
And I kind of had to stop for a minute, because I was like, wait a minute, what? And then I realized, you know, it's just not everybody's used to seeing that. You know, 3 of our 4 children are African American, and so people looked at that and they're like, well, that's not normal. That's not how your family should look. So to them, it was, well, you must have somebody else's kids that you're just, you know, bringing out here to go to the home show.
Yeah.
4 little kids under the age of like 6. So yeah,
on the
we.
bright side, though, at least they didn't think you were child abductors. Like,
True.
they thought you were
This
Sunday
is
school
true.
teachers.
This is
So
very
you were
true.
doing something right.
We made it out without
Right.
interrogation.
Yes. Well, then when I proceeded to say, you know, no, actually they're all 4 our children, and then she kind of changed her whole tone and was like, oh, God bless you, thank you so much. And, you know, I think the public just isn't educated enough on, you know, circumstances like that, and I think that as we bring more awareness to this, it makes, you know, mixed families seem more normal, which is awesome, because, you know, it doesn't make me feel good when I go out in public and somebody says, are those your children? Like, those are my children, because I don't look at my children and look at the color of their skin. Those are my babies. And so to me, you know, I kind of get in defense mode a little bit, and I have to remember that people just don't understand. And so, you know, educating people and kind of explaining the circumstances, I think helps with the public's reaction when they see us out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's been interesting.
Wow. So Mama Bear.
Yes, Mama
Sure.
Bear, I think I'm out.
Tamasha, can you speak of some challenges that you may have had through your experiences as a foster parent, and either the placement that you have or some of the placements that you've had in the past?
This has been my only placement. I had one other child that was in respite, and the biggest challenge I would say is when you have kids. My kids are older, so they're 13 and 10, so I didn't get them at a younger age, so they've experienced some things. They've seen a lot, so my kids are very emotional. They've experienced a lot of trauma, and it's almost like life has been one way, and it's hard. It's trying to mold them to see life in another light, and you can't make them erase the trauma. So it's kind of sort of working with them every day. Every day is a different day, so every day can be different in my house. So we can wake up and today's a good day, and we can wake up tomorrow and tomorrow is not a good day. The most recent thing that happened is I took my oldest downtown. I just thought on the plaza to get her pictures done, and my foster daughter said, I'm ready to go because this place brings back memories. So it's just instances like that that brings back the memories, because again, we can't make them erase it, but you can only work with them. You can provide them the resources that they need to work through the trauma so that they can learn to cope with it and find positive ways to cope with it besides anger and reaching out to people in negative ways. So it's been an experience, but it's been kind of good because you see them one way when they come to you, and you see them develop into another way. And even though with a teenager, because I had to laugh a few minutes ago, when I was in Pride, I could be honest with Melissa, and I would say, Melissa, I'm not ready for teenagers. I'm not ready for teenagers. So when I got this placement, and she said to me not long ago, remember you said you wouldn't take teenagers? So, I thought first not about my feelings, but I knew this was a sibling group that I didn't want to be separated. So I was up for the challenge, and it's been good. So of course, just remembering that all kids are different. That some kids are going to be require a little bit more than another child's going to require, but it's just remembering the pride, remembering everything that you've been taught, and utilizing the resources, especially with DSS.
Billy, how has your motivation changed towards foster care since you first looked into becoming a foster parent?
I'd say it's grown. I think it grows. You said earlier, minute by minute, and I think that is just such a good way to look at this. Minute by minute, there are new challenges, but there are new rewards, and I think our passion has grown exponentially, minute by minute, every day that we've been a part of this. I'll share with you, it's funny because I was chuckling too. We were that group, right? We were the parents who said, we just want 0 to 18 months old, and we'll wait happily till that happens. Well, our second respite was a 10-year-old girl, which I was completely unprepared for, and Patty was too. We have a farm, and we have a bunch of farm animals, and she ended up loving the animals, but she was only supposed to be with us for a weekend. But she came to us, and they told us that it was a Saturday, and that was her birthday. And so this was completely new to us. What do we do? This poor girl. We come to find her backstory. She had been found in a parking lot in Walmart. She had been living in a car with her mother. Now, this is a great example, and I share this with you to share why our passion's gotten even more. Her mom wasn't a bad person, right? Sometimes we attribute certain nefarious things to people who lose their children, but her mother was actually a really hardworking, decent person who just couldn't make ends meet. And so they were living in their car in Walmart, and of course DSS, CPS, they can't let a child live in a car in Walmart. So they took her for the weekend and said, hey mom, we're gonna get you an apartment, we're gonna help you out, we just need to have her in a placement. And so we were talking to her and we said, well, what do you want to do for your birthday? And she just got so sad, and she said that she'd never been able to have a birthday party before. That she loved when her birthday fell on days of the week, because then they could celebrate in school and her teachers would have cake and so forth. But not that her mom didn't want to, but they just never had money for it. And so we were able to get every person we knew, every friend we could, and we threw her the biggest birthday bash we could. Total strangers. She had no idea who these kids were, but everybody brought her a gift, and I can't tell you how rewarding that was. I get chills just thinking about it. That was one of the best moments that I'm sure she'll never forget, but it was even 10 times better for us. I hope that in our journey in the next 12 years we get more experiences like that, because she was only with us for a weekend, but she changed my life.
Wow.
So.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing. Tomas, how about you? Has your motivation towards foster care changed at all?
Yes. It just makes me want to go and stay in it, even longer. Because again, there's a need, and like he says, we don't know the backstory of why we get the kids that we get, and it's not because everybody's bad, but so the moments that we can have them and we can make a difference. To me, I take advantage of that moment. I take advantage of that time, and of course we look for reunification at the end. So it's just been exciting, and it's make my passion is even stronger to make me really want to stay and continue it.
Yeah. Matt, you and Kelly might be the ones that can really speak on this, because it's been quite a while since you first started thinking about foster care. So how has your motivation changed?
So we still, every year we get our recertification paperwork in the mail, and we still fill it out. So no, we still have a passion and a heart for the children, and the placements are you never know when you're going to get them. We want to help when we can help, and it's unfortunate that not every time we can help, and you won't be able to help every time, and Billy can't help every time, and so it's a collaborative effort between the foster parents and the caseworkers and people like yourself. So it's knowing that as this has built and developed over the past 12 years, that we want to keep doing it, because it's not just us. We know that there's a team of people that have invested their time and their life and their energy into these children to provide a safe home, and as long as at the end of the day that's what the goal is still going to be, then we want to be a part of it.
Yeah. Billy, what kind of advice would you give someone that might be considering being a foster parent?
Talk to other resource parents, because they're ultimately going to be the best resource. I've enjoyed being part of this just because I got to listen to Matt and Kelly talk about all of the stuff that they've been through. That's the best thing, right? The resource parents have been on the ground level. They've seen things, they've experienced things. If you talk to them, they're going to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I think that's the best way to prepare for being a foster care parent.
Yeah. So I really appreciate you all being here and talking a little bit about your experiences in foster care, and especially with the children and the parents. And just like to let the people at home know, if they're interested in becoming a foster parent, the easiest way would be to contact the Department of Social Services in the Tri-County area, and that can be reached by dialing 410-713-3959, or you can go on Facebook to Respite Foster Adopt, and you can get the information there. Thank you for joining us, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you for having us.